Welcome to Spiraling Within. I'm Pei-Ling Lee, and my guest today is.
Hi, I'm Yuka from Yuka, California.
Yeah,
Um,
and go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Yuka. Go ahead.
yeah, so I just started a YouTube channel all about health and happiness. So I'm sharing some healthy recipes from food made from whole organic source ingredients, some natural alternatives, and just, techniques on how to just have more peace in your daily life.
Yeah, and Yuka and I, we connected because just these past couple months, we just did our 200-hour yoga teacher training together. So we're both certified officially yoga teachers.
Yeah, it's been a very exciting journey.
Yeah, definitely an adventure. And so, before, something that I intended to do in my first episode of this podcast is just a moment of centering before we kind of launch into the flow of the conversation. And so, if you're listening, wherever you're listening, Yuka, I'll invite you to, if it's available and comfortable to you in this moment, to just close your eyes and simply arrive here and now. Maybe noticing the breath, maybe letting out a sigh on the exhale. Letting everything up until this moment, anything beyond this moment, to simply drift away like clouds in the sky, letting your breath be the breeze, the wind that carries anything that is complete away for now, focusing and arriving here. And we open this space of conversation and connection and magical co-creation with inviting the sound of the bell. And opening the eyes if you have not already done so. Ah. Oh,
That
that's
was nice.
nice. I felt like that was very necessary for me.
Yeah, me too.
Ah. So yeah, Yuka, YouTube. You just launched your YouTube channel in the past couple weeks. You've posted a few videos. You're really just shining and sharing. How is that journey for you right now? How is YouTube and Yuka California on YouTube? Yeah, how is it? How's it going?
So it's definitely been a crazy journey because I was honestly deathly afraid to speak to a camera just in January. I really was nervous and I was thinking because I knew I wanted to start the channel and I knew I had to start the channel, but I didn't feel confident and I didn't feel ready. And so that's what like the yoga teacher training really unfolded for me. Like it really helped me build the confidence and just allowed me to put myself out there and, you know, stop letting these fears hold me back. So I just launched I just like posted my first video. I think it's been about 3 weeks ago, and that's where I go into depth with like my background, my story, and how I got to where I am right now. But it's been great. I mean, so I'm practicing all the time and it's trial and error. Sometimes I'll film something and I'll be like, okay, no, we want to change everything here. So it's definitely a work in progress. I'm like still learning, definitely. My third video is actually going to go up later this afternoon. So yeah, it's been a learning journey, but it's been a good one for sure.
Yeah, and I can so relate to that. And this is something that we've also talked about is just the fear of being seen, the fear of being on camera, the fear of sharing and speaking and being visible. Like that fear and I were best buds. And
Yeah.
I mean, honor and celebrate you and also us, the fact that we're like right here on camera speaking to whoever is listening. Like we're here and we're like doing it, and that's so amazing. And oh, there's a squirrel outside. I love windows. Okay, focus. Yeah. And something that you said, you knew you had to do it. You knew you had to start a YouTube channel. What is that inspiration? Like, how would you describe that energy or that voice? Like, what part of Yuka are you speaking from when you say that I knew I had to do it?
So, pretty much, I've been working in corporate marketing for a few years, and it just did not align with my soul, what I felt like what my life purpose was. And last year in 2020, when my sister got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer for the third time, I just knew in that moment, like I couldn't keep lying to myself. And so I took the leap of faith and I quit my job. So, not only did I know I had to do this for myself, just as for my soul and, for what I stand for and what what my true, what I'm sharing on the channel is basically like how I live my life and what's true to me, and just being, authentic to myself and just showing up. And so when I say, I just had to do it, it not only was for, my own soul, but it was literally because like I have to build something in order to make some sort of income. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's like, it's amazing the people that we kind of connect with in life, because the parallels between our journeys has also just been so parallel. Like I quit my job in August, and I was also doing a marketing job, or like a media communications marketing thing, and I left because it was really my soul. And it felt like a leap of faith at the time, because we're leaping into the unknown. We're leaping into the unknown and trusting that whatever it is that we're here to create and share, that is truly, I think for both of us, coming from within, like coming from within our essence, and trusting that will support us in all the ways.
Yeah, definitely. So in 2020, a major theme for me was surrender. I'm definitely, I mean, just surrendering and trusting and allowing the universe to kind of take control, like take over and kind of guide me to where I'm supposed to be. Because like naturally, I am someone who likes everything to be in order, and I like to be in control of things. And last year really taught me, like, I can't control the outcomes of what happens, and I just have to keep trusting and have faith that everything will work out for my highest good, and what's meant to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. The control thing. And because I remember we talked about the Enneagram in yoga teacher training, and we both have strong 3 energy. And the 3 as really being very achievement driven, and at least like my history through school and all of the first, through college, like very much disciplined, at least for speaking, like my experience was, I was super disciplined, super controlled, like super organized and like on top of all my things. And then 2019, 2020, it's like I graduated college and just had a 180 flip in my life and got to really embrace, and not even embrace, but just discover what it's like to flow and to surrender to the flow of life and kind of listen to. And that's why I love like signs and synchronicities and just seeing numbers and the ways that we can encode our reality to guide us. And it's a way of being like, here's a sign so that I don't have to actually think. At least for me, I don't know about you, like the in the state of control for me, it's like it's very mental energy. It's like coming from kind of the mind energy of trying to stay safe, trying to be good, trying to be good enough, and trying to be worthy, and all of those themes and patterns. And then it's like, as I really learned to feel safe in my body and in my heart, and like dropping my awareness and the center of where I live from, because I definitely live from my mind. That's what the controlling was for me. It was like living from my mind versus living from my heart and my body. And yeah, is that something that you can relate to too, about living from the mind?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the whole like perfectionist thing, or like the everything that you just described, like I think of as like the ego mind. You know, the ego mind is the one that's always trying to keep us safe. It's the one that, you know, even if our heart wants to go for something, it's our mind that tells us we're not good enough, because it's that ego that's trying to keep us safe, because that's all the ego wants. It just wants safety, right? So anything to keep us safe, meaning holding us back to taking the leap of faith or moving forward in the direction that we want to, it's going to do everything it possibly can. But I think like recognizing the ego as one thing, and knowing that we are not that, and it's just something, I mean, it's, although it's a part of us, like we can somehow like separate ourselves and just observe those thoughts and become aware of how it could be controlling our lives, and how to kind of manage it, right, and work with it, I guess.
Yeah, I love the analogy of life is kind of a road trip, and it's like, who is in the driver's seat of this car that you're in? Is it the ego? Is it the mind? Is it the energy of fear that is driving the car of your life? Or is it your heart, your soul, your divine light being essence self that's driving the car? And you know, I can also zoom out and recognize and appreciate that even when it seems like fear is driving, our higher selves, divinity, all of that actually still always has us. It's like, even if it seems like the ego's in the driver's seat, it's like the road that we're even on is pure divinity. That's kind of what it's like. And so, but at the time when we're in the car and we're in the kind of vessel of, if our body is the vehicle and we're just being driven by fear, it can feel like fear is driving. Yeah. And we have the conscious ability to choose and be like, okay, fear, you're welcome to come along for this ride. That's been really supportive for me, because like you said, ego, it just wants to keep us safe. And what a beautiful, loving intention. Like, that is such a good intention. Like, how sweet. And the mind, the mental energy, the fear energy, it's kind of like a toddler throwing a tantrum. That we don't kick the toddler out of the car. We don't say, like, we don't toss the toddler to the curb. We let the toddler be there. We let the toddler show up in the tantrum that it's in. Yeah. And just ride that wave. And then we, as the observers of our experience, we as the wholeness that we are, we get to include all these different parts of ourselves. Like, that car analogy has really supported me, even with like inner child work, or me at different ages, or even in a family dynamic. It's like, can my mom and my dad and my brother, exactly the way they are they all welcome to be in the car and show up exactly as they are? And can I trust that life, divine source, whatever it is, the life force energy is driving us and supporting us?
I really like your analogy of like how the ego could be looked at as like a toddler, and how we wouldn't throw a toddler out on the street, you know, if they were acting up. And I like, something that I've been learning very deeply within the past like month, like a big theme for me is just having compassion, not only for others, but more so like for myself, right? Because I'm trying to like work with the ego mind, you know what I mean? And so when I have
Yeah.
those fear-based thoughts where I'm negatively talking, you know, to myself, being super harsh on myself and being hard on myself, I just have to, when I realize that I'm doing it, look at it as like with compassion and not be so hard on myself for doing it again, and just be like, okay, yeah, we're doing it again, but we're aware of it, which is, you know, step one, which is great. And then now let's see how we can move through it. So yeah, it's just having compassion, you know, like, I think a lot of people want to like dissolve the ego, or you know, they don't want the ego, but the
Yeah.
thing is that it's a part of you and you can't ever get rid of it, you know. So learning to work with the ego and having compassion for yourself in those ways is super useful. But yeah, like signs and synchronicities is huge, because like you may be like living in the ego mind, right, and thinking like, oh my god, no way this is going to work out, like you know, there's no way, and there's just the fear-based thoughts, right? But then you'll go outside or you'll see something that just stands out to you, that you know it's an absolute clear sign from your spirit guides, your angels, or you know, like a higher source that's just letting you know, like, no wait, actually you are on the complete right path and you're doing
Yeah.
exactly what you're supposed to be doing. But I think a lot of people, when they see the signs, they don't want to believe it. You know, the sign can be as clear as day, and some people will be like, no, it's just a coincidence. But no, it's not a coincidence. It's completely set up. It's a total synchronicity, and it's just like becoming aware of that and appreciating those signs. The more that you appreciate it, the more that you'll see those signs, and they'll keep giving it to you.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you touch on so many resonant things, compassion and working with the ego, like the ego really as a co-creative partner. And what you say about signs and synchronicity, I can very much relate. It was a big aha moment towards the end of 2019, and this was kind of all at the time when I was catapulting into spiritual remembrance. And one of the major shifts for me was my relationship to signs and synchronicities, specifically number patterns, angel numbers, whatever you call them or whatever resonates with you. For example, looking at the clock and seeing a certain time continuously, or
Yeah.
seeing 111 or 222. And for me at that time, it was 444. I don't know how long, but maybe for a couple years, or just over and over again, I would notice 444, and I had forgotten this was a synchronicity. I had forgotten that this is a sign for me, that I had left for me. And so when I saw 444, it actually sparked fear. Speaking of the ego and the tantrum of the ego, and keeping me safe, it sparked fear in that 4 in Mandarin is programmed as an unlucky number. The number 4 sounds like si. So si is 4 in Chinese, and then si is dead or death. And so because 4 sounds like death, it is deemed as unlucky, which actually, now that I'm speaking and recalling it now, and I love that you also brought up dissolving the ego, because something that I've definitely experienced much of over the past 2.5 years is what some might describe as an ego death, or like a complete dissolving and restructuring of the ego. And that is in many ways what the sign 444 was kind of cluing me into. It's like, you're about to die and you're gonna die and you're gonna die and die. But when I learned about the term angel numbers and remembering that it's like, oh, seeing this number pattern, seeing the sign is actually a message from the universe that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And everything that is in this moment is just perfectly aligned. And so and now in terms of my like current awareness or experiencing of number patterns and synchronicities, it's like I remember that I left that for me. The part of me that is the multidimensionally whole, divine, all one self, like that is a clue that I've left for me to guide me on my journey. And it's like we leave ourselves these kind of like a treasure map of these clues, and
Yeah.
we're just following these clues, and then, you know, it's not like there's necessarily a treasure at the end of the map, because the beauty of it is that the treasure is in every moment of the experiencing. It's like every time I see a synchronicity, it feels like I'm at the end of the rainbow with the pot of gold, and it's just pure magic and delight. And in terms of what I experienced in shifting my relationship to synchronicities, like how did I integrate that fear and then now suddenly experience synchronicities as being delightful and magical and guiding? It really is, that's the dissolving and really the evolving of the ego. It's in all of the stages. And it's funny about like the whole living a spiritual path or embodying a spiritual journey. The wonder of it is that it keeps going. It just like keeps going and it keeps unfolding. And yes, it's final in that moment when you just fully are viscerally experiencing this ego death, or whether it's ego death or just simply like a profound energetic release or a recalibration of your entire energy system and light body. It's part of that evolution, because it dies and then it's reborn. Like our mental energy and our programming, it's reborn, and we get to reprogram our mind. And it's like deprogramming and reprogramming, and really we can program our ego, we can evolve our ego in a way that supports our soul, that like supports and nourishes all that we do.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, like what you were just saying, like I think kind of going back to what I was saying about dissolving the ego and not being able to fully get rid of it and learning to just work with it, that's definitely like the dissolving and then the restructuring or the recalibrating. Because we've all been programmed by society, by our parents, by our environment, and learning that some of those programs, like they don't actually resonate with who we are as like a soul and like what we live for, like what's true to us, and realizing those patterns and then restructuring it, which is restructuring the ego, because the ego is the one that has all those patterns, those programs that we're using and all of, you know what I mean? It's just like the ongoing thing that's going on. But it's an ongoing process, literally until the day we like this physical body actually, does pass. Like we are always going to be working with ourselves and learning, and it's just an ongoing journey.
Yeah. And it's interesting, even as you like talk about the ongoing journey, and I notice like a little pattern or program come up that's like, oh, that sounds tiring. Like that sounds tiring. That sounds overwhelming. That sounds like a lot of work. That sounds like effort to be on this journey. And this part that I'm like gesturing with my hand, kind of like a sock puppet behind me right now, because it's a part that you talk about in the past month. That's what working with your ego and compassion. For me, the past couple months, and especially this winter cycle, has very much been about death and honoring the dying process, and honoring that there can be a grief that we process as we are restructuring, as we are changing. Whenever there's change, there can be this experience of grief, and grief is just the feeling label that we put on an experience of emotion, because really it's neutral. It's just all energy that's flowing and moving. And for me, this part that it sounds tiring or overwhelming or exhausting even to continue to shine or continue to show up. A profound experience that I had in the past couple months is just, rather than, it's kind of like if that part is this tired, again, going back to the toddler, this tired, exhausted little girl, this little Pei-Ling that's exhausted in the back of the car, rather than be like, because I think that there have been other parts of me, like maybe it's the controlling part that's like, no, we gotta do this. We have to stay awake, like just push through. And that may have been true. That's may have been a pattern or program that was playing out for me in the past. And now getting to choose and be like, with compassion, it's okay. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to
Yeah.
be exhausted. You can sleep. You can
Mm-hmm.
rest, close your eyes, and that goes back to the surrender. It's like surrendering. It's me fully allowing that tired part to be tired and to
Yeah.
embrace it in its tiredness, because I also
Right.
remember that it's like, one, it's temporary. So I'm not always in a tired state. And
Mm-hmm.
also that it's, again, going back to the good intention of the ego wanting safety, this energy, at least for me, like it just wants me to feel like rested and peaceful and balanced and in harmony. And really, as I go down to kind of the root or the essence of it, it just wants to be reunited with source. It wants
Mm-hmm.
eternal peace. You know the saying, rest in peace, when people die?
Yeah.
That's what it wants. It wants to rest in eternal peace. And
Yeah.
so me allowing, like I had this journey where I essentially allowed this little girl, I asked her, I was like, okay, where would you like to die? Where would you like to rest? And there was like a meadow, and so we literally, I'm talking about within my mind's eye and my energy body self, we we like dug her little grave, and we allowed her to rest in this bed, this sanctuary, this kind of womb and nest of Mother Earth, of Gaia. And what ended up happening, as I fully surrendered and allowed that part, that energy, to be buried and to rest and to die, is that she was reborn as this like golden winged angel. And it was the
Yeah.
most beautiful experience to be like, wow, within her this entire time was this divine light essence, this magnificent radiance. And she didn't need saving. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. She didn't
Yeah.
need saving. She needed just love and support and the reminder that she has permission to rest.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that something that, I mean, as human beings, what we're always doing is that we're always striving and we're always feeling like we have to be productive, especially for you and I, growing up in the Silicon Valley. It's like productivity is like the thing that drives, success, quote unquote,
Optimization.
success over here. Right? Yeah. So we always feel like, we can't give ourselves that time to rest or, even just like process emotions. We always just feel like we got to keep going, got to keep going. Like there was a long time where if I was tired and I would allow myself to rest, I would have this guilt feeling like you shouldn't be doing this. You got to keep working, like how are you going to be successful if you're just like hanging out or something like that, And so I think that when you were kind of talking about like the puppet in the back of your mind, like I could totally relate to that, but I think it is just knowing that, well, one, like since I've shifted my perspective on life, I guess, and just seeing how beautiful life really is in just like the mundane, like boring, like, just going to the grocery store or something like that and just seeing like plants outside of the store, like just seeing the sky, like just seeing the beauty in literally everything that surrounds us, even the quote unquote bad experiences. You can always find like the silver lining or something to find a beauty out of that experience. Maybe it's something that you've learned from that experience. And so, yeah, it is like thinking about us having to do this for the rest of our lives. It is pretty exhausting to think about because we've just been dealing with so many deep emotions recently, especially since we've just kind of like been getting into the swing of things, And so just, I think like the perspective shift is huge. Like just knowing that although, yeah, it may be tiring, there's just beauty everywhere. So it kind of makes it worth it. You know what I mean? But yeah, like wait, what was I gonna say? But yeah, I don't know. That's just been a big realization, I guess, for me, because I definitely feel that. But yeah, allowing yourself to rest, and something that's been huge for me within the past year is just really self-care, right? That's where you kind of, although that life gets exhausting, it's giving yourself those moments of peace for literally just for yourself. Like nobody else is benefiting from it except for you. And that's kind of like the rest and the rebirth of it, of your daily life. It's just doing it every day for yourself so that you can recharge, and giving yourself that without feeling guilty. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm like lighting a candle again for myself. It's like, no, I'm doing this for peace in my own life, just so that I can keep going and continuing to show up as myself and giving back, and being of service.
Well, and part of the magic too of self-care is that as we do that, as we light the candle for ourselves, we are inherently lighting the candle for all that is. Like as we care for ourselves, because we are each these individual parts of this one whole, and at the same time within the part that is you and me contains the entire whole. So as we care for ourselves, as we meet ourselves with this loving compassion, we are, and it's not even, theoretical or abstract. We're literally energetically resonating that loving, compassionate energy across literally all that is, across time, across space. We're loving and showing compassion for our ancestors of the past, ancestors that have yet to come, of the land, of the plants and the animals, all from something just as simple as honoring ourselves and lighting a candle. Like that is how powerful and pervasive our really self-love. And I remember in college I had the saying that, like, in order to be able to invest in anyone, part of me felt like I needed to invest in myself first. And really that's kind of tuning into the state of overflow. And this is something I'm really excited and passionate about, is serving from an overflow. Because really abundance, whether it's financial abundance, energetic abundance, an abundance of inspiring ideas, the truth is that it's always here and always available. All we have to do, I can look outside the window, see the squirrels, see the leaves, and it's like, wow, there's like you noticing the plants outside the grocery store, there's an abundance of life. There's an abundance of energy always here. Even looking at the sky, it's like there's an abundance of space. Even within my body, there's an abundance of the fact that my heart continues to beat. Abundance is everywhere. And serving from the state of overflowing this abundance. And then we get to share, because and this is something that when I did Reiki training a couple years back, they talked about, is when you're channeling Reiki energy or really doing any energy work on anyone, you first connect with source. You first connect with that infinite flow of energy, and you're not actually, I'm not draining Pei-Ling energy into anybody else. Like doing energy work is not draining my energy to give you my energy. It's opening myself as a channel for the infinite source energy to flow through, and flow through me, but also flow through you. And that way there's no depletion at all, because as we know, the universe is continuously expanding, and there's truly infinite abundant energy available for all of us. Even as we breathe in, like the fact that we're swimming in air, like there's vital energy all around us that we're breathing in and receiving, and it's nourishing all of our cells at all times. And how, like, that's so amazing. And when we notice these things, when we notice the flowers, when we notice the beauty as you're speaking of, like, that in and of itself shifts our entire experience of life and death.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, like, I really just think, like, your mind, kind of controls your reality, right? So if your perspective is on abundance, like, you'll continue to see abundance with everything, just how you described, like, abundance of air. So many people don't even think about that. They're thinking of the lack of what they have, who they are, and what they want to be, rather than looking at the beauty that's actually already within them. And I love how you were talking about how, we, like, by giving ourselves self-care and like love and compassion, we're also giving it to, you know, everybody else around us. I mean, just the universe in general, right? So, you know, that saying where it says like we're just a drop of water from the ocean. It's like, yes, we are, although we are separate, like physical beings, we're all interconnected energetically. And it's just funny because, you know, you walk down the street from somebody and you think there's some sort of separation, but it's like, no, we're all from the same place. We're all from the same source, which is Earth, you know, the universe and all of that. But what you were talking about, like feeling like if I was drained or something like that and not being able to give back, like that's been a huge learning lesson for me. Because so like I said, with my sister's cancer, so the first time she was diagnosed was 2015, and at the time I was in college, right? So I mean, I was working, but I didn't have like this crazy corporate job or anything like that, and I was in like a really good mental state. So I was able to give her like 100%, maybe, you know, more than that. And so we went through the whole journey together, and I was her, you know, primary caregiver, and I was taking care of her, and she healed like really quickly. And then in 2020, the second time, same thing was going on. I mean, I was, at that time I wasn't working. And so I was able to give her, you know, 100% again. And so she healed within 3 months. It was like so quickly, you know, like she just went through everything really fast. But I had that energy because I was giving it to myself, of taking care of myself and give, so I could give it to her. But in 2021, when I was at my last company, I was like completely depleted, like without even what was going on with her, just mentally in my own state, I was completely depleted, overworked, and just like completely burnt out. So when we got the news of it, the way that I was, like the way that the news was received was a completely different way than when I was in like a good mental state, compared to when I was like burnt out and I couldn't, you know, I went deep into a depression where I just like, I could not handle it. I mean, but I still had to give her everything I had so that she could heal, you know, but I could see that. And everybody kept telling me like, you got to take care of yourself first, because how can you give from an empty glass, you know? So even when life gets crazy or there's a lot of stress going on, like you always have to take care of yourself first, because you are the most important person in your life. And you can care for people, you know, as the most important people in your life, but you yourself, like you got to take care of yourself first and give yourself like that loving energy first, so that you're able to share it with those around you that you do care about.
Yeah. And even just each time hearing you speak about caring for your sister, I so honor and feel like within, I found like this, my heart, within my heart and within your heart, the devotion of your love for her and your care of her as well. And it really reminds me of when you taught us in, during yoga teacher training, we each did a little practice sequence, and in experiencing yours, which was all really about the heart, there's a ferocity to your love. There's this passion and fierceness to your love that is just so powerful. It's just so incredibly powerful that I absolutely believe that I believe that you can give more than 100%, and I believe that when you're all in, you're all in. You're all in. And imagine, which I'm sure you're experiencing this. Actually, no, I'm not sure, but maybe you experience this, that I imagine that if that level of ferocity that you radiate out to your sister, to others, when that is turned towards yourself, and that level of devotion is turned towards your own beingness and wholeness and light and love and all of those things, of filling and overflowing the cup that is you, that it's like, wow, that it just amplifies to like no end. It just amplifies to infinity. And I also love that you brought up the empty glass, because it reminds me of, in my Qigong teacher training, Lee Holden, who's the Qigong teacher, he talks about how a glass, there's a saying of is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And he talks about how the glass is always full, even if it seems empty, because the glass is full with air. Even an empty glass is full with air. It's full with energy in a form that may seem like it's empty. So it just depends on how you're viewing your perspective. And so liquid water, even there's water vapor in the air, for example, and water is still water. It's just in two different states. And we, as the alchemists of our life, we have the power to skillfully collaborate with energy and transmute energy in these different ways and transform energy from being liquid water to vapor or solid into ice. And with that, it's kind of like, even in those moments, because Me Too last year, I think our timing of when we were experiencing this really depleted, burnt out, was also quite parallel. And even when I was in that total experience and embodiment of emptiness, it's kind of like, again, just zooming out and remembering that we're the ocean, and we're even vaster than the ocean. And in that zoomed out awareness, it's like my empty cup is full of energy, of source, of divinity, and that again goes to the surrender. It's like I willingly allow myself to empty my ego, empty my mind, empty my expectations, empty even my thoughts. Something that you said earlier sparked something in me about how you said it's tiring to think about. It's tiring to think about the length of this journey, the length of this life, or even our to-do list for the day. It's tiring to think about, and the tiring part is the thought. It's kind of like if that thought that it's tiring, or the belief that it's tiring, were a cloud that just like drifted away, what are we left with? Oh, we're left with peace. It's just peace is here, and serenity and harmony. And actually, even if the thought that we're on a journey and we're not yet at our destination, even if that, like, we're always arriving or we're always becoming, then we're left with, oh, we've already fully arrived. Like, everything that we're meant to do, everything that we're meant to be, everything that we have yet to achieve or to prove or if all of that goes away, then it's like, oh, everything is here and everything is now. And everything is whole and complete and aligned. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you were talking about the cup when it's full, even if you don't have like water filled in it, I got this visual of, so let's just imagine like a clear glass, right? And the water, like just pure like water is clear, right? So that's just like pure energy. That's like the water that you're filling when you are taking care of yourself, when you're in like a good mental flow, right? And you're just so let's just imagine if the water was, or like as if some sort of substance was continuously flowing into the glass, right? So if, like right now, taking care of myself and taking care of my mental health, you know, is big time. So the water that's going into the cup is just water, right? But if I'm stressed out or feeling fear or having self-doubts or any like negative anger, any of those like, you know, darker energies, then I like imagine the water then changing to like coffee or like muddy water, like a dark colored liquid, and pouring it into that water. Like it doesn't, then the pure water turns into the darkness, you know what I mean? And so you can continue, so then just imagine it continuously flowing in, right? And so the water then you're giving out is that kind of muddy coffee looking water, you know what I mean? But you can always change that out, but it does take time. And so when you realize that you're in this mental state and you're like working on yourself to get out of it, the water like slowly shifts to the purity back again. But as you're pouring it into like the coffee water, it takes time to actually become fully pure again. You know, it's just like, I don't know, I just got this like really cool visual of how
it's all tuned in, and it's amazing that you say coffee and you share that visual, because literally the first episode of this podcast with my friend Elise, we talked so much about coffee. She's passionate about coffee, and we were talking about filtering coffee. And so this is just like a wonderful continuation of that conversation, because in that I love the visual of the pure water and the coffee, and because that is talking about and dealing with duality and the nature and the essence of duality, of light and dark. And speaking of programs and wanting to be safe and at least in my experience, both the light and the dark are inherently neutral. They're equal. One is not good and one is not bad. I think that we can all recall and recount moments in our lives where we've experienced what seems like darkness, and that itself has been the doorway to the light, and then the doorway flows into the what seems like darkness, and vice versa. And with the coffee, it's a great example, because it's like, coffee is delicious too. Coffee can be absolutely enjoyable to drink as well. And at least for me, as I've been flowing through slower vibrations or denser energies or darkness or emptiness, those things, it's not a hierarchy of that is necessarily that's not a worse state to be in than the light, bright, bouncing off the walls Pei-Ling. Because really they're all one me and one beingness. And even as the coffee is present, I get the choice then, if I'm aware that the coffee is present, because, in being attuned to my just subtle energies and the shifts of energies, I know when the coffee is coming. Like, I know when the energy is shifting and the water is turning into coffee. And I get to choose in those moments whatever I choose. I can choose to be like, okay, I'm surrendering. I'm just going to allow the coffee to be here, and I'm just going to enjoy the taste of the coffee while it's here. And then I trust, because as I've experienced this time and time again, the coffee just naturally filters on its own, and there's nothing I have to do. I don't have to do anything to filter this coffee, because really at the bottom of this glass of water is an entire root system that is connected with the earth, and the coffee will just naturally compost through the roots of me into the earth, and Gaia and the earth just totally receives it with gratitude. Because speaking of transmuters, earth, Gaia is masterful transmuter, composter. That's what the earth is constantly showing us that we can do. And the coffee will just filter, and then the water is clear water. And that's the other thing about coffee, is that it seems like it's coffee, and at the same time it's also pure water. Like, it's both those states all at once. And we get to choose our perspective and our relationship to that, and our experiencing, how we experience the glass.
Exactly. Yeah, like, I like how you just talked about duality, because I've been seeing how, with every quote unquote amazing experience, like, there is some sort of level of darkness, right? Like, in order to appreciate the really, great high energies that you have to go through a state of like darkness in order to see that light. Because sometimes, like, if you're just in a good, constant, happy state, you never really appreciate things, so it is just kind of what you're focusing on. And just going back to like being the drop in the ocean, it's like the coffee can be like when the waves are crashing harder, you know what I mean? But there's always a state where the waves will mellow out and they won't be so hard and crazy, sometimes they'll retract a little bit with like a low tide, it's not always constant darkness and hard crashing waves, but like it's just the duality of like, sometimes it's harder and sometimes it's lighter, but there's always like a neutral state where things are like at like an even flow.
Yeah, the ebb and the flow and the changing of the current. And I also love the what I think often about waves, or waves rather, are very much wisdom teachers for me, and reminders of allowing the currents of life to buoy us. And that's kind of when we surrender and we trust, and we really, it's kind of, starfish I don't know if you know, like the when you just starfish out, you spread your arms and legs out, and you just
Yeah.
float on the surface of the water. So
Yeah.
if we clam up and if we curl up into a ball, what do? We cannonball and we sink to the bottom of the ocean. If we open our arms and our legs and our heart and surrender and lie back, or lie on our, because we can also lie face front onto the water, but if we're just open, life buoys us, it
Yeah.
carries us. But sometimes we do close. Sometimes we do choose to have the experience of cannonballing to the bottom of the ocean floor. Because what I love about, I love this because sometimes when the waves are really choppy and it feels like the waves are crashing onto us, shifting awareness to the remembrance that yes, I am the waves, I am the water, I am the wind that blows the current, and I am also the ocean floor itself. I am that stability that holds it all. I am the container, and I am, it's kind of like beneath all the chaos that may seem to be happening, beneath the storm, within the center of the storm is peace and stillness. And so
Yeah.
sometimes the cannonball, sometimes we close, we contract, we believe that we're exhausted. We choose that. We choose that experience. We choose to cannonball to connect with the ocean floor. We can, and it's just like the little girl, little Pei-Ling, choosing to rest in peace and bury. It's like, why am I digging into the ground? It's because I want to connect with earth, with stability, with stillness, with support. And the magic of it is I don't actually have to physically go and drop into the ocean to remember that I have that choice or to have that experience, because as we integrate our experiences, or as I've integrated my experiences, it's like I can see when I'm sinking. That's essentially what it is. I can see when I'm sinking, and I can choose to be like, okay, I'm going to enjoy the sinking and enjoy the view down at the bottom of the ocean. I'm going to enjoy the taste of this coffee. I'm going to connect with the ocean floor and trust that a time will come when I open up my arms and my wings and I float right back up to the surface.
Yeah. I love that analogy. Like, I was just like visualizing the whole thing in my mind. And yeah, it's like when you're sprawled out like a starfish and then the waves start crashing really hard, it's, you know, the first thing that our minds do is safety, right? So that's when we begin to close. But knowing that the ocean floor is also us, and it's just, we're all connected with, you know, the source. Like, we don't have to close up in order to be safe. It might feel like it's a safety thing, right? It might feel comfortable in that sense, but then you do sink. But then when you do sink to the bottom, you kind of get that remembrance of, wait, I am one with this, right? And then you kind of slowly float back up. But not being hard on yourself if you do actually close, because I mean, all animals, like if they are sensing some sort of danger, they close also. Like a starfish will close, or, you know, plants, or, you know, everything. They'll have some sort of escape where they do close for safety. So I think it's just in our nature to naturally do that. But having the compassion for ourselves that if it does happen, that we just allow ourselves to be in that state. I was like thinking about, okay, so like as humans, when we make a mistake, we tend to look back and beat ourselves up over it, right? We're constantly like, how could you do that? How could you be so stupid? Like, oh my God, like, you know, other people are going to think you're stupid because of that. And you're just constantly like in your head, right? But then I was like thinking about, I saw this video of like a tiger where it was trying to jump onto something and it completely missed and it fell over. And I was like thinking like, there's no way that tiger then thought, wow, I'm an idiot. What am I doing? Like, people are laughing at me, and they got a video of it. He simply just got up and kept living his life, you know? And I think that's like a big metaphor, is like how we should be treating ourselves and living, right? Or like, I mean, one, like always being aware so that you can learn and better yourselves in every situation that you encounter, right? Like holding yourself accountable in that sense. but not beating yourself up to where it's like negatively affecting you. It's just like, get up and keep going, you know?
Yeah, and I love that you bring up animals and the tiger, and also when you talked about animals curling up in a ball, I had a flash of an armadillo or like a roly-poly that
Mm-hmm.
really, it literally curls up because our backs are our, so there are a couple things about like our backs. There's our protection, that's kind of like our outer shell,
Right.
whereas it may seem like our front side, our internal organs, all of that is more exposed on the front, and also our young meridians, and that's kind of known, the parts of our skin that typically catch the sun, like those are more of our young sections, and then our yin sections are the paler parts,
Mm-hmm.
or the parts that are, yeah, just don't really catch the sun. And in that protection of the roly-poly or the armadillo, or even, yeah, because it's what I'm recalling now in this moment is like, if I'm that tiger who stumbles and makes a mistake, there's the energy, that protective energy really just wants to curl up and hide. And that goes back to what you were sharing at the beginning of the fear of being on camera. Like, for us to be face front and like heart forward, visible on the camera, instead of like me going like this and just like totally hiding my face.
Right.
There's this experience of exposure. There's an openness. We are starfishing for
Mm-hmm.
whoever is also experiencing this moment with us. And say I stumble or something, or and a voice comes up. If that voice of judgment, oh, you shouldn't have said that, or you should know what you're saying, or it should be more clear or polished, or whatever, that inner critic, for me at least, that's kind of my inner critic voice. Just like the ego and the safety, that energy, that program is also, in my experience, programmed for safety, programmed for protection. Its intention for me is to be loved, and that how I present, how I show up, how I share is worthy, it's good enough, and that if I'm good enough, then I'll be good enough to return to source. I'll be good enough to be at peace. I'll be good enough to experience love. And at least for me, trying to get rid of my inner critic, just like trying to throw the toddler out of the moving car, has not necessarily been an effective strategy for me. It's more so been the meeting it with compassion and including it in the experience and integrating it into the harmony of what's here, because we are each spacious enough. I am spacious enough to include even the judgment, even the inner critic energy. And the amazing thing that, as I've experienced, and I would say 2020 was very much like a integrating my inner critic year, in 2021, as that energy is integrated and included into wholeness, my experience of it just totally shifts, because now that energy is nourished, it's connected with source, it has the thing that it wants, and so it's no longer throwing a tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
It's like feeding the toddler. If the toddler is hungry, you feed it.
Yeah.
All of these parts are these like hungry parts, the protective part. Even the energy that wants to curl up as an armadillo, if I directly give that energy what it is that it desires, which is the love and the belonging and the reassurance that I am always inherently worthy, and I just offer myself that gift of self-care, and in doing so, radiating it for all that is, then it nourishes it at its source. It nourishes it at its source, at its roots, because it is connecting it with source, with that
Mm-hmm.
love. And just the other thing that you had mentioned about the tendency or programming within the human ego or mind to look back and berate the self. There's only the berating. It's just like the clouds. It's like, if that voice weren't there, peace is here.
Yeah.
But really, even with that voice there, even if we are the ones speaking from that voice and we have forgotten that the ocean floor exists, even when we've forgotten that the sky still is. The ocean floor still is. We are still held in that. We are still connected with source even when we've forgotten that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we choose to forget, just like we choose to cannonball. And the thing about animals and the roly-poly, imagine being this tiny roly-poly that's just like scuttering around the floor. At any moment, it can be crushed. At any moment, this animal, this little creature can be stepped on. I don't know the consciousness of the roly-poly, but in insects and, all of those, what I would like to imagine and what I choose to believe is that they're just fully in the present moment. That they curl up when a potentially threatening energy arises or when something is genuinely threatening. Mm-hmm. And they're responding in the present moment. Just like us, if we were walking across the street and a car suddenly shoots by, surrendering doesn't mean just continuing to walk and being hit by the car. Maybe maybe you don't notice the car and that's how you've chosen to die. But oftentimes for most of us, it's like we walk and then we see the car and we stop.
Right.
And that too that's the beauty of the protection, that in us trusting and surrendering to the current of the ocean, we're not there's still safety and protection in that, because our intuition, our divine, all of those things kick in the moments that they're meant to, in the ways that they are meant to. There's a difference between I'm walking across the street and there's literally a car that is about to hit me, and the experience of the psychological or emotional or mental threat. Even though our nervous systems are programmed to, in that fight or flight or freeze, programmed to experience even the threat of psychological death or ego death as being equivalent to physical death. And we just get to choose how we include those things into our experience and how we relate to them.
Yeah. I love how you were talking about like the clouds and things. So the way that I think about it is so the sky is always just blue, right? And then the clouds, they're constantly flowing, right? So you have like your very light clouds, and then you have your dark clouds that are filled with rain, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's just allowing because at the end of the day, all the clouds pass. None of the clouds sit there and stay there for days and months and years. Mm-hmm. They don't. They always eventually move on and dissolve and then come back. And it's just this cycle of life, right? So when the clouds are over you and it's dark and it's, like that gray looking cloud where it's just raining, it's not hating that rain or the cloud. It's accepting it. And maybe you find rain to be really beautiful, and maybe you go outside and enjoy it for a little bit. So I think a lot of people, we're so hooked on wanting to be happy all the time that when we feel any sort of negative energy or when we feel some sort of sadness, we are like, oh my God, why is this happening again? But at the end of the day, it's just like clouds. It's just like waves. We're here for a human experience, and it's just a part of life, having the ebbs and flows, like the ups and downs. It's just the duality of everything. You cannot constantly be in this like happy, playful energy all the time, or else you won't appreciate it. You have to have the dark moments in order to see the true beauty in those bright moments.
Yeah, and I think what you're speaking to as well, that reminds me of when we were talking about the animals, is the seasonality of existence. And that's why, it's called spiral. One of the ways that the spiral as a symbol, as an archetype, really resonates with me is in how time, seasons, things are cyclical. And me, even just in the cycle of getting my period and then like throughout a month, and all of that is a cycle. It's a spiral. There are times when I'm shedding, when I'm bleeding, when I'm like more curled in. Maybe I'm like not sharing or exposing or shining in the way that I might when I'm the starfish in the season of ovulation. And that's like this bright sun energy. And even in that cycle, it's like we still get to choose how we flow through our cycle. Like, because each person is different, each individual has a different relationship. And even if you get a period or not, even if you don't experience cycles in that way, we all go through the cycles of seasons or the cycle of a day of sunrise and sunset. And nature is just this reflection of that cyclical nature. And going back to the controlling, this attempt or this mind energy of controlling and trying to keep things linear, trying to keep things in a box, in an order, is that kind of, how do I take nature and make it straight? Like, how do I take this thing that's all curvy and wild and have it fit into this like one line, or fit into this perfect expectation of what it should be? And I've just found so much more ease. And because ease very much is something that I value in my life, and ease and joy, and being able to and joy isn't necessarily, it doesn't look a certain way. It doesn't look like maybe that I'm bouncing off the walls. It's this appreciation of the sweetness in all of the currents of life, all of the cycles, all of the waves, and the fact that I can enjoy my period, I can enjoy turning in, I can enjoy being quiet, I can enjoy stillness, and I can enjoy opening and engaging, and all of that. The ease for me comes in just allowing it to be what it is, like listening to what's present within me, what's true, what's here, and then letting that just be, rather than it's the toddler energy, the puppet voice energy comes in when I look at what's here and go, this shouldn't be here, or I should be back there, or why did I do that? All of those thoughts, those clouds, clouds exist. Well, right now I'm looking out the window and there are barely any clouds, which that feels very fitting and mirroring of my experience right now. But just a couple days ago, there were like rain clouds, like heavy rain clouds, and those clouds now only exist in the past. Those rain clouds exist in my memory of them. They're not actually here right now. And so can I allow the blue sky that's here to just shine as the blue sky that it is? Or if I want to, I can choose to recollect and be in the existence of gray, dark clouds, because we know that sometimes our energy within can be gray clouds, even if the sky outside is shining. And there's kind of an alignment or an attunement that I've been experiencing where, oftentimes I just notice that the sky actually reflects perfectly what I'm experiencing inside, and then I just kind of flow in harmony with how nature is guiding me, and I'm guiding nature.
Yeah, I absolutely love how you brought up the seasons, because it's something that I've been getting more trying to live with, thinking about like summer, right? Everybody wants it to be summer all year round, right? Because everybody wants to have fun. They want it to be like warm, and the sun's out later or longer, you know what I mean? So, but you can't put summer in a box, and you can't put summer into winter. It's just impossible. The seasons are completely different, right? So it's like enjoying and appreciating summer for when it is, and when it leaves, just letting it go, but knowing that it's going to come back again. It's a cycle. It's a continuous cycle, but we cannot put anything into a box and try to fit it into every situation. Like the way, like what you described, like what you said was, the way that you experience joy, it's like your way of experiencing joy could be completely different than the way that I experience joy. But at the end of the day, it's still the same energy. It's still joy, right? But it's just different experiences. And learning how you, as your physical self, experience things and how you like to just enjoy things, you know what I mean? Everybody has their preferences. Not everybody likes the exact same things, and just finding the beauty in the differences in others, you know? Like something that I was initially struggling with when I first like launched my YouTube channel was, after I launched it, I said, okay, well, great. Now I'm holding myself accountable. I have to put content out there. So I started stressing myself out because I was like, I need all the lighting to be amazing. I need to know exactly what I'm saying. And I need to, like, all these crazy thoughts where I was putting myself into this box of having to be a certain way or having it to be perfect or whatever. But it's like, who's saying that it has to be this way? Why can't I say that I want it to be this way? And why can't I just be open with the way that I'm experiencing this whole moment, rather than trying to fit into this perfectionist box of how food YouTubers are on YouTube, you know? So my video that I'm like editing right now, it's super just honest, and it's like I'm talking about how I don't know when the best time to post is, but we're gonna figure it out together. You know, it's like this togetherness that I want to create, and allowing of not everything having to be perfect and not everything having to be figured out. Because I think so many people don't even want to get started because they don't have it all figured out. But it's not having it figured out and then everybody follows you. I think people get really invested in the journey. Like when I start following, like there's people that I started following when they weren't established, and I loved seeing the transition and the growth in that. That was what I was invested in, and that's why I love them as who they are now, you know, and appreciate like where they started, because they didn't start as this like successful, perfect photography and everything is amazing. It's like we all started from somewhere, but being able to share that journey and allow others to know that nobody starts from perfection, you know, everybody starts from somewhere, but just having the faith in yourself and trusting that with whatever like happens in life, that you're going to just continue to keep pushing through it and just sharing that journey, which I think is been a huge thing for me, and like what my message really is, what I'm trying to instill in my channel. Like I don't want it to be perfect. I don't want the lighting to be, you know, perfect every single time. Like I want it to look as good as possible, but if there's something off, if the camera's not angled a certain way, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Because when I first started my channel, I started doing that. I started thinking, oh my God, I have to have everything set up, and like if it's not, end of the world, you know, nobody's going to like it. But I think people appreciate seeing the mistakes and the journey and all of that.
Yeah, such great reminders, and so relatable and parallel to me and my sharing and all of those things as well. And it's like, I think at least for me, that note that you just said about appreciating the way that we show up, however we show up, for me that begins in me appreciating myself. Like number one, if I'm appreciating and accepting and allowing myself to be however I am, however, like I'm looking at myself now, however my hair is, however my clothing is, however I'm showing up, however I'm speaking, the tone of my voice. If I just allow myself to be that energy of going back, self-care, self-love, self-acceptance, that really radiates. That radiates when we're in that energy of just fully allowing ourselves to be exactly as we are. That itself is healing and aligning and powerful for ourselves and for, you know, what you also my clouds just all drifted away. my cloud, and I'm just now sitting in empty sky because I don't know. Oh, Reels. I remember. Instagram Reels. You talked about sharing on YouTube and having all the conditions right and having the lighting right and da-da-da-da-da. There was a thought that came up for me a couple days ago where I was like, okay, it's time. Maybe I'll do Reels. Maybe I'll like commit every day. I'll do like a 30-day reel thing where every day I create Reels. I'll like batch create my Reels because this is like real strategy and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And what happened? I didn't do any of it because it wasn't aligned. I maybe created one reel, but going back to the season, something I very much am honoring about myself at this moment in time of the way that I create is that it's very present moment. It's very spontaneous, and it's like me walking outside, seeing the light reflecting, and then in that moment I'm creating a reel because that is the moment that that's the moment of inspiration. It's basically me being open to inspiration arriving at any moment, and then I have the choice of letting that inspiration flow through. And yes, I absolutely, because I love listening to people's creative processes and just like geeking out on the creative process, we can create that space and that container for ourselves. Like if I were to schedule 2 hours on my calendar and be like, okay, now I'm showing up and I'm just going to create reels. Not wheels. We're creating reels. We're creating reels. I've done that. I've put it on my calendar, and then you know what? The moment arrives, and that's not what the energy is present for. The energy that is true and present that's just like not. So I have a choice then do I just fully be present with the energy that is here, or do I try and fix or change or again put myself into the box, put myself into the little calendar slot that my mind, or even if I had scheduled that from the truth of my essence and my intuition, when that actual moment comes, that is what is there to be experienced, regardless of what the schedule, the calendar, the timing is. And that's what really, when I talk about spirals and spiral time, it's this alignment with divine time. And something else that you had said that I wanted to add to of, it may not seem like when we start, because you're right, it is exciting and it is inspiring to be along for people's journeys and to support and witness their journeys. And as we know, sometimes we come into people's life in seasons. Like we witness this part and then we dip out and then maybe we realign, and that's just how the energy waves and flows. And at the beginning of the journey, it may not seem like it's perfect. It may not seem like we're at the end. It may seem like we're this little seed. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. I have these seeds on my desk right now. Do you see this? So this is a tiny, tiny seed.
Uh-huh.
This is a redwood seed.
What?
This tiny, minuscule, like smaller than a quarter of my fingernail, grows into an entire redwood forest.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of you launching your YouTube, or for example, a couple days ago, I had a bit of there was some resistance coming up, but I had the inspired call to do my first Instagram live. And so I clicked the button, and there was one person that showed up, and it was a lovely 15 minutes. And it was just wonderful. And that's a beginning. It's me being the seed. It's me showing up and being like, hey, I'm a seed. And at the same time as me being a seed, I'm also the whole frickin' redwood forest.
Yes.
I'm the entire ocean, and I'm this drop of water. And if you resonate with the specific seed that I am now, or the specific redwood forest that I am now, then welcome. And if you don't, even if somebody were to watch our things, because I think both we relate and we are similar in that inclusion of however we show up, even if there's something that seems wrong, even if there's something that maybe we would want to edit or change or alter, in allowing that to be, we have no idea how that may be a gift for whoever encounters it, a gift even for us. Because I know that there are times when maybe I see something and maybe it's Oh, I don't know if you're like this, but are you with frames, like picture frames hanging on walls? There's a part of my mind that is just very attuned to picture frames that are off kilter, that are wonky or slanted, and there's this
Yeah.
urge or impulse from that energy to straighten it. Even if I'm like in my acupuncturist office, I'm like, "Oh, can I straighten this photo?" And
Yeah.
yeah, that's absolutely a thing. It's just like wanting to center, wanting to harmony, wanting to align.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is I get the opportunity to be like, okay, let me look at this wonky, let me see this photo, and can I appreciate it in the exact alignment that it is right now? That from the remembrance that all is already perfect, that even that which seems to be misaligned is in perfect alignment. That which seems to be wonky is actually already in total harmony. That which seems
Yeah.
to be dissonant is already resonant. And that's my choice of how I choose to experience. I just choose to experience the harmony and the perfection and all the things because that's what
Yeah.
feels aligned for me.
Yeah, everything that you just said, like, completely resonates with me. So, something that, because, like how you said, like, scheduling time on my calendar and just saying, okay, you have to create right now. It's like, it doesn't come like that, like inspiration and creativity, it's a flowing energy, like, yeah, maybe if I tried hard enough, I can sit down and force myself to do it. But I feel like the inspiration and then like taking the inspired action is like what I'm trying to do also, because I don't want to fit into this box. It's like, who says that we have to post every single day in order to grow, right? It's like, if I find some sort of inspiration, I'm going to post it. But if I don't
Yeah.
find anything inspirational or like that I want to post, I'm not going to force myself to do something because it's completely not in alignment with what I'm feeling at that moment. So in 2015 and 2016 is when I first like I tried doing exactly what I'm doing right now, except
Yeah.
like way more low key because I was in a big, like a lot of fear, right? So I had batched like a ton of content, like all the captions, all the photos, everything that I wanted, like everything was batched out. And while I was posting it, I was in this like fear based state of mind where it really was starting to dig me into a deep hole. And while I was posting all these things about like positivity and ways to think, it had absolutely no resonance with how I was feeling. So then it felt like I was lying. And so that's why I had to stop. I had to like completely stop posting things because I was like, yes, this is my universal truth. Like, this is what I believe deep in my soul. But at this very moment, it doesn't align with me. So I can't lie to everybody else and say that this is how, it should be when that's not even how I am right now. So with my new approach with this time that I'm doing it is very much taking inspired action, like what you're talking about, and not telling myself I have to fit in some sort of box in order to find success. And I think that like the inspirational moments that we find and share, like you can feel energy through photos, videos, and content. You can really feel the energy of the other person. So if you're out of alignment with what you're posting, like people can tell. Like, I don't know. I feel like the energy is
Yeah.
like you're able to feel it, even if it's through a phone or a device, you can really feel it. And so forcing myself to do something when I'm not wanting to do it, it translates. Like I'm someone that really can't hide my emotions. So if I have to do something I don't want to do, it shows on my face. Like I just cannot hide it, and I don't want to show up like that. Like I want to have consistent content, but I don't want to lie to I don't want to lie to people, that my whole thing is just being true to
Yeah.
myself. And so if I'm in a state of like, I've gone through, like, I think everybody goes through like slumps when there's no creativity flowing to you and you're wondering like, what is going on? Like, why am I in a creative block? Like, how come this happening? How can I fix this? And all of this stuff. And you focus on the lack of again, but it's all about the perspective, right? So just knowing that it's going to come back to you and just finding inspiration by finding just beauty in things. Like I will go outside and I will literally step right outside and I will find inspiration right there because it's just so beautiful everywhere that we are, right? But it's the focus point. You know, if we're focusing on the lack of, the energy just flows to that. Like if you're focused, yeah, like if you're like, what does it say, like where your attention goes, your energy flows, right? So if I'm just focusing on the lack of inspiration and, oh my god, why can't I do this, and beating myself up over it, I'm just creating more of that. There's no way that I'm going to create inspiration by or like feeding negative energy. It's just like letting it go and allowing the inspiration to come back to me. And I love that. And the seed thing is huge. So this was like a few years ago. I went to Sanborn Park in off of Highway 9, like in Saratoga.
Yeah.
And I was by myself, and there was like a school field trip going on that day, and the person like leading it picked up a redwood seed, which is exactly what you had, and said, "This is the redwood tree seed." And like, you know, she was standing in the forest, and she said, and this is what it grows to. And it was like this huge moment for me where I was just like, damn, like exactly what you said. Like, even though you're the seed right now, that redwood tree and all of the other redwood trees are within that seed. Like the intelligence is literally in that seed. And that is what we are right now. We're literally the seed. And once we nourish us, right? Physically and mentally, we will eventually grow to these trees and then create more trees around us, you know? It's just so beautiful. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and I can so relate with the batching. And it kind of is like we have, going back to the seasons, we have these seasons where we step out and then we kind of let go of maybe what we're doing, we attune, we align, and we step out again. And it's kind of like those cycles. Because for me, it was at the beginning of 2021 where I suddenly had this aha of like, oh my gosh, this whole spiritual thing, this is actually what I'm here for. And for me at the time, I was like, it was like one-on-one coaching that I was resonating with. And so I batch created all this stuff on Instagram, and I posted the things. And then, you know, life continued on, and that just kind of flowed away as I had things to kind of be with, and other things came up in the present moment for me. And what you were talking about of the truth, it really is aligning with the truth, because it can be, even if I do batch create things and maybe I posted it at a later time, if I'm posting it, it's because it's true for me in that moment. Like there's nothing that I'm posting or I'm writing that isn't absolutely resonant and true for me in that moment.
Yeah.
Even if I've created the graphic beforehand. But there is something about creating in the moment when inspiration arises and then just sharing it, because, you know, we're infinitely connected with all the different interweb connections, and we have no idea how. In terms of the question, what is the best time to post? The best time to post is now. It's the now moment that you post in, whenever that happens to be. And in terms of the schlump and the inspiration and where inspiration comes from, that seed, the redwood seed of inspiration, is literally in everything. In every iota, quantum particle of energy, even if the energy is experienced and there's this lens or overlay of, oh, this is bad energy, or this is dark energy, or this energy shouldn't be here, that too is a seed of infinite divine inspiration. And it was in October or November, because like you said, that schlump where sometimes it feels like the creative flow isn't flowing. It was in last fall when I was really beginning and launching my website redesign project, which is going to launch this June. Divine timing. But that was when I started it. And I remember I went and I was like, okay, this is the week. I had a due date. I was like, this is my week to write all the copy for my website. I went to sit down and literally nothing. It was like being up against this like brick wall sensation. And all I could do in the moment, well, I could continue to push. I could continue to knock my head against the wall and try and make it happen and write. But anything I create from the state, from the energy, from the vibration of pushing against a brick wall, it's going to translate in that which I write. Because we can create, and we do create, whether we're at the bottom of the ocean floor in a cannonball, or whether we're starfish, or whether we're literally flying in the sky. Like, we're creating at all these different levels because we are in every moment creating our experience. And so if I'm writing or channeling or creating from the state of being where I am knocking my head against a brick wall, forcing myself in struggle or effort, that is what that's what I'm expressing. And maybe that's perfect. Maybe that's exactly what I'm meant to express because I'm connecting with somebody on that level, and that's perfect too. But ultimately that's my choice. And oftentimes for me, when that's there, that's not oftentimes, and that's something I'm just reflecting now because I have been playing with that, of getting to include that as part of what I share and create from as well. But if I'm creating from that place, it's because I'm creating with the awareness that that is just a state of being. I'm also creating with awareness that I'm integrating that into wholeness. And so it's not actually creating from within. It's creating, I guess it's like creating from within the stuck energy, and in so doing, creating from the wholeness and the perfection and the alignment of that stuck energy being there. Because really the stuck energy is rocket fuel for the flow. The stuck energy can be the inspiration itself. And for me, in that slump of being like, okay, I'm sitting down to write my website copy and there's nothing coming, that was my invitation to really roly-poly up, curl inwards, and be with that part that just felt so, that was tantruming, that was like, I'm so alone, I just want to be done with this. And that's a pattern that I've gotten to experience quite intimately. It's I just want to be at the end. I want to be done. I just want to complete my soul missions. I just want to complete my soul missions, complete my soul purpose, skip to the end of this movie and just be done so I can rest in peace forever. And that was the part that was calling to be nourished. And so me meeting that part and including that in my experience, even though it took it, I had initially been like, my website is launching in December and now it's June. And honestly, who knows if it's June? It might be May. It might be never. But all I can do is be true to what is now, and trust that there is no missing the wave. Like, if something is meant to be expressed, if something is meant to be shared or created, it is. It just will be because it's already done. And yeah, so it all weaves in with the surrender and the trust and the seasons and allowing ourselves to just be as we are.
Yeah, I love that. Like, so, I feel like when we surrender or trust, or, even if we're just in a state where we're not really focusing on having to create, like, let's say when you're driving, like, I get so much inspiration or downloads of information while I'm driving, right? And that's just inspired, like, it's just honestly, downloads of information. So, I just want to take inspired action whenever I have it, because I know that it's going to pass and it might not come back. Like, there's so many times where I've gotten an idea, like a great idea, and I'm like, oh, I'll just do it later, or I'll write it down later, I'll remember. But then you absolutely don't remember, you're going to forget it. So when you get those senses of inspiration, like, I'll pull over and I'll type it all out, like, if I get some sort of I just like type it out, and then I'm like, okay, like, I have it now and I can post it later. It's just like taking the inspired action and, like, I guess not holding yourself to a place where, like, you have to do all these things or, like, you have to create all the time. But it's like, when you get the senses of the inspiration, it's like, take it. You know what I mean? Like, the universe is giving you something. It's giving you a gift. So receive it and, like, run with it, rather than forcing.
Oh my gosh.
Everything.
Yes, absolutely. And the inspired action, that is what we are here. That's why we're physical. That's why we are on earth. That's why we are here. That is the process of anchoring, of grounding these inspired energies into beingness, into that's the entire process of manifestation, of actualization right there. And whether we are anchoring it into physical form, digital form, or even expressing it in conversation, because right now, like me receiving and listening, you know, it's definitely where I'm speaking from is not from my mind right now, but just letting the inspiration flow through my voice, flow through my quantum voice, because that's definitely a phrase that's been resonating with me, because it's including everything in this quantum moment. That is the anchoring, that is the grounding, that is the action, that's the creation itself. The creation itself is the expression of the inspiration. And just like you, I love that you pull over to the side, because I have been blah, 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 blah. I've been in the practice of just always having my iPad or my phone or a notebook that literally, if something, I'll just sit down and write. And especially with songs and musics, oh, there's really some type of flow happening right now. But just before we sat down for this conversation, I went to my piano because yesterday there was a few lines of a new song that came through, and I saw the lyrics because I'd written down the lyrics and I wrote down the chords, but the melody, I didn't do a voice note of the melody like I usually do. And like you were saying, it was just poof. And the melody that came out was just a totally different melody. And there was part of me that was like, oh, maybe I should have recorded it. Maybe I should have. But really, if I was meant to record it, I would have recorded it. And now I just get to be in the evolution of whatever is now. And at the same time, it's like, even writing down that inspiration, even if nobody ever sees it, even if that is never shared on Instagram, us creating is the sacred divine act of expression. And at least for me, it is so a part of my whole self well-being. Like literally my physical health and wellness is tied to whether I am expressing my creative flow. Like it is really, for 20 something years, 22 plus years, chronic constipation, truly chronic constipation. And I didn't even know I was constipated because I didn't know any different. That's like being curled up in the cannonball and not knowing that the sky is above the waves. It's like being at the bottom of the ocean, or being in this curled up and not even remembering that the sun is there. And then as I've been just like allowing the flow to flow through and taking that inspired action, even if it's just writing it down or scribbling thoughts or doodling or humming melodies, all of that, it's like my poops are great, wonderful. And it's like, it's easy and it's flowing and it's just all related to, because digestion is that flow, and it is this very physical way that even circulation of our blood, all of these things are ways that we physically experience the flow of energy through us. And when inspiration comes and we're like, oh, later, that's putting it off, or it's blocking it, and we're choosing to block it. And, you know, I'm so grateful that I got to experience 20 something years of chronic constipation, because as we're talking about of duality, that became this rocket fuel, this motivation for me to discover what flow and ease is like, and get to choose that. Yeah. I totally understand that. And it's just this journey that we're on, and just allowing, you know, whatever comes up to flow out, and not holding on to, you know, anything. We can't just like stay stuck on a thought, or holding on to a time period, or like a certain thought. You know what I mean? Everything has to flow. Everything is just this continuous flowing energy, and it's beautiful. Yeah. And it flows even if we try to resist, even if we are in resistance, the flow is still flowing. And that's the wonderful thing, is that there's actually nothing to do, nothing to change. I mean, and sometimes like it's like if you're not flowing, then the universe will put you in situations where it will force you to get out of that stuck state, and it will
push you to keep flowing.
Yeah, which that's going right back around to the synchronicities. It's like us leaving ourselves those clues, those invitations. Because really, I guess that's how I experience life, is everything is an invitation that I have an empowered choice to act upon, to do with, to experience in any which way. And because really we are free, even if we're presented with situations, we are inherently free, and so we do have that choice. And those invitations get to just guide us and nudge us and offer these little reminders and help us remember and rekindle things, and those moments of like light bulb inspiration and realization and recognition, recognizing that something is for us. All of those. Yeah. Which this just feels like a very wonderful place to transition into what Yuka, you're offering us to experience together. I have no idea. This is a surprise for me too. And so based on what's present in here for you, yeah, what would you like to share for me and for all of us listening and experiencing this now moment together?
Yeah. Well, so thank you for having me on this podcast. Like, it's been, like, I've enjoyed it a lot, and it's been great to have this conversation. But so pretty much in 2015, my sister got diagnosed with stage 4 glioblastoma brain cancer. And that caused me to completely change my lifestyle. It changed my whole perspective on life. You know, I used to be negative. I was unhappy. I wasn't who I am today, you know, and it just literally forced me to appreciate life because I didn't at that moment. And so since 2015, you know, I've been having this dream to launch this YouTube channel and this blog and this Instagram page that I have right now. Like, exactly what I'm doing right now was the dream that came to me in 2015 when I was in college. But I had a lot of fears and doubts that didn't allow me to do it. But it was because I wasn't ready at that moment. I had more things to learn. So that's why I ended up getting the corporate job, and I was working for a while, and and then universe again, it forced me out of the situation and into where I'm meant to be, which is here right now, which is launching this channel. So my YouTube channel is going to be all about what it is. It's all about health, happiness, and mental well-being. So I'm posting recipes from food made from whole organic source ingredients. And it's just basically recipes on how I live. So one of my main focuses is that you don't have to have every single ingredient to make every single meal that I make. You can swap ingredients all the time. Vegetables, you know, you can change it up. It doesn't matter. It's just using what you have and utilizing it to your best ability. And so that's what all of my recipes are based off of. And then natural alternatives, you know, we're constantly surrounded by things that are harming our health, and a lot of the times we're not even consciously aware of it. So I'm just going to be posting about a lot of natural alternatives, and then also that saves a lot of money too. So it's all kind of around lifestyle, mindfulness techniques. You know, I'm going to be talking a lot about my mindset, because I completely shifted my mindset as to like what I have right now is it's all just I'm just sharing basically what I've learned, what I do, and how I stay in this mental state of mind. You know, I go through ups and downs all the time, but it's just sharing that journey. So I have my YouTube channel, Instagram and TikTok. All of my handles are Yuka California. And I do have a website, which is www.yukacalifornia.com. And that's where you can find my recipes and links to everything else that I'm going to be offering. So that's
what a gift it is. What a gift it is that you're sharing and you're showing up and you're speaking from the truth of your direct lived experience. It's not just talking the talk. You genuinely walk the walk, and you live this in your daily life. And talking about truth, you're speaking from the truth of what is true for you. And I love that also it's inclusive of whatever is true for everyone else, recognizing that what's true for you might not be what's true for somebody else. And so there's spaciousness for me to attune what it is that you're sharing to be true for me. And so if you're sharing a recipe that's like, use eggplant, and then me and myself are like, eggplant isn't resonating with me right now, let me use zucchini. I can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so with that, what's one tip or something that we can integrate or experience now or today in our lives, whether it's like a recipe or an alternative or a natural substitute, something like that?
I just think it's being open-minded. So many of us want change in our lives, but we don't know where to start, and we also don't believe that it's possible. A lot of people, like I lost 30 pounds within the past year. And before I started on the journey of, making that my goal to lose weight, I thought it was impossible. I was eating healthy, like eating the same things that I do right now. And I was like, why am I not seeing results? Why am I not losing weight? Like, I'm working out like crazy. Like, what's going on? And it wasn't until I realized, like, I had a friend that lost a lot of weight, and I was just like, it's possible. You know what I mean? Like, it is totally possible. And just knowing that change is possible is what really fueled me to make and dedicate myself and stay disciplined and consistent until I saw the results, because I believed that it was possible. So just my number one tip is going into everything with an open mind. Just because you don't know how to do something today does not mean that you cannot learn how to do it in a few weeks or a month or a year or whatever, however long it takes. It's just anything is possible.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. What a great reminder to just be open to the infinite possibilities. There are truly infinite possibilities available to us now. And yeah, thank you for offering the inspiration of that. And I can also just very relate on the body level of having these like physical goals. For me, I'm believing in the possibility that I can do pull-ups, like full pull-ups and full push-ups on my toes. That is something I'm holding in my heart as being fully possible for me, even however long it takes in divine timing. And yeah, that reminder, open-mindedness to infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you so much, Yuka, and thank you to everyone who is here sharing this moment, co-creating this experience with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pei-Ling. It's been a great time.